I have joined. Hello.
Hello, and a warm welcome to all my participants to the 135th session of Business and Banking Dialogue, which is live across EPS channels. It's in YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I'm KK, your host and moderator. Today, we have with us a very eminent personality, Professor Deepak Phatak. He is a Professor Emeritus, IIT Bombay. It's a privilege to have Professor Phatak, who is a Padma Shree recipient, as our guest speaker on the topic of payments, especially with QR codes-based payments. So a brief about Professor Phatak is right in front of you. He was confirmed, like I said, he's a recipient of the Padma Shree from the Government of India. He has obtained his bachelor's degree in electric engineering. You can from SG SITS Indore in 1969. Professor Phatak was also the first Dean of Resources of the Institute from 1995 to 1998 and was a founding head of the Kanwal Rekhi School of IT from 1998 to 2002 and briefly served as head of S.J. Mehta School of Management from 2004 to 2005. So he has the best of both, the IT knowledge as well as the management knowledge. I'm sure he has a lot many other things. His primary research inclinations are in technology application and deployment, and has been an advisor to, he has been an advisor to SBI since I was there for some time, RBI, UTI, IDBI, LIC, New India Assurance, so many of them. He has received the Excellence in Teaching Award of IIT Bombay in 2009 and is the IIT Bombay Industrial Impact Award in 2010. Professor Phatak has also worked with governing bodies like NIBM, IDRPT, UTISL, ISIL. He's also recently served on the board of Bank of Baroda and currently serves the HDFC Management Company and IBPS. Welcome, sir, to the Business and Banking Dialogue Show.
Thank you, KK, and delighted to see you again after a long time.
Yes, sir. Me too. We have met, when I was in TCS and SBI was our client.
Yes.
So anyway, so it's good to see you again, sir. So ladies and gentlemen, QR codes are known to all of us. Yeah, many of us use it daily as a payment mode for buying daily necessities. Why QR codes-based payments have emerged as an ubiquitous payment channel in a socially distanced world? What are the other use cases which will further boost the popularity of QR-based payments? What are the measures being taken by various entities to enhance security measures and educating consumers about the risks? Okay. In December 2019, the Reserve Bank of India constituted a committee called Analysis of QR Code. And our guest today, Professor Phatak, was the chairman of the committee. And in July 2020, the committee presented a RBI report on the analysis of QR code. Today, Professor Deepak Phatak, Professor Emeritus, IIT Bombay, shares the future of QR code-based payments across the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a very, very interesting conversation on QR code. And I welcome all participants once again to the show. So, after the pandemic, the world has become socially distanced and triggered the renaissance of QR-based, code-based payments. On the digital side, the QR has taken a lot of prominence. A recent survey conducted in US and Euro reported there was as high as 18.8 increase in QR code payments. What are the major three factors that have led to the accelerated adoption of QR code-based payments, both by merchants and consumers?
Good question, KK.
Thank you.
I would, if you ask, I mean, there are many factors, as you know, in any technology adoption. But since you have asked for three, let me list the three which I consider perhaps the most important. The first is availability of affordable technology in the concerned things. As you know, QR codes are very easy to generate, very easy to print, and they do not cost much money for any merchant to stick a QR code either on a shop or on individual items, etc. The second is the tremendous spread of phones with cameras in the hands of consumers. You see, usually payment systems require a point of sale terminal at the place of a merchant, and people have to queue up against that terminal. But with the availability of smartphones with cameras, these basic technologies have been available in India for quite some time. The spread of phones has literally exponentially increased in the country. That is the first factor. The second factor is the essential software which will drive any payment system. And for that, I will credit the existence of UPI or Unified Payment Interface, which was released, created by NPC and released by RBI. I still remember that. You would agree that the availability of UPI has fostered a new era of digital payments in the country in all walks of payments. Whether it is a retail transaction, you would know of NEFT and RTGS. I mean, this country matches the progress and perhaps supersedes the progress in digital payments to many advanced countries also. Yeah. And all that is accelerated because of the availability of UPI. That is the second factor. The third factor is the glue which connects the availability of payment system interface with the availability of technology. And that is the software, the apps which people have written, the apps which banks have adopted, the payment system operators have adopted, which essentially do the following. They permit the use of an already available camera to scan the QR code. There is no mystery in that. That scanning technology is already incorporated in simple app. But most important, they connect the captured QR code, analyze the QR code, identify the web links or any such links which are included there, including payment information, and deliver an end-to-end channel for the customer to pay and for the merchant to receive the payment. Right. And so I would think that these are the three very, very critical factors which have actually permitted a huge increase in the QR code based payments.
Absolutely, sir. I think UPI has been a significant factor. There is absolutely no doubt about it. You know. So what would be the long-term impact of recent rise in QR code payments on the payment landscape in India? Particularly, let's talk about India. How would it have an impact on the Indian landscape?
I have been, as you know, I have been completely India focused all my life. So let me just roll back in history and tell you some dreams which I had dreamt when I had an opportunity in late 90s and early 2000 to do a digital payment system project involving smart card endorsed by Reserve Bank of India. The idea was to develop a standard, an Indian standard, which we ultimately built upon EMV or Europay, MasterCard, Visa, which was actually just emerging then. And the reason I quote this is with the dream which I had shared with the people who collaborated at that time, vendors of appropriate POS machines for those smart cards, etc. I said, I want a bhaji wali in Jhumri Talaiya to be able to sell 20 rupees of sabji to a customer, and the customer should be able to digitally transact that payment of 20 rupees.
Right.
The, the basic theme of my dream is that the retail payment, at least of small value, small goods, which is done by the entire 1 billion population of the nation every day, day in and day out, if it could be facilitated by an appropriately available, affordable payment mechanism, then that will change the lives. Now, why I made a reference to that project is because you will recognize that smart cards, which incidentally have become the order of the day now,
Yeah.
do require an infrastructure investment of significant value at the hand of the merchant. And you can see that a poor Bhajiwali in Jumri Talaiya, even in 2021, cannot afford a POS terminal sitting on a footpath selling the bhaji.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And therefore, this is not a workable solution for a very large number of very small retail vendors and very large number of purchasers of small value goods. Sabji is just one example, but you go to a pawn shop, you go to a chai wala, you go to various places, such infrastructure is not going to be available, it is not going to be affordable. I believe that the availability of QR technology and the other components which I mentioned will dramatically permit this large population of people and a fairly large number of small vendors to adopt digital payments very quickly. And I believe, therefore, that you have seen the phenomenal rate at which QR-based payments have increased.
Yes.
It will increase further rapidly, and we don't have far to look. Just in our northern border, as you know, Chinese have actually proliferated the use of QR code in all kinds of payment systems, and the percentage of QR code-based payments is much higher there. We have, although we have completely different political systems, etc., but there are similarities in the economic structure of the society in both the countries. And there is no reason to suspect that just because we have all the technology elements available, people are more knowledgeable. And by the way, thanks to COVID pandemic, everybody has been thinking about doing something digital.
Yes,
Our
absolutely.
classes are conducted online. Poor young students have no other option to do so. I believe that one good thing which has come out of this unfortunate calamity is a greater awareness and desire on part of the people to adopt anything that is digital. It is this will also add, and I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that going forward, the long-term impact will be more and more visible. And I have no doubt that the QR-based payments will actually increase exponentially in coming 2 to 3 years. And they will continue to be there for quite some time, till such time more simpler to use technology comes out
Yeah,
and replaces.
that's correct. Absolutely. So good that you talked about Jumri Talaya. I always thought it is only in the you know Vivid Bharati
Yeah, we will,
when you want to.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So
In fact,
but
Dinata Deepmala in my younger days
yeah.
used to have a lot of farmaish from Jhumri Talaga. That is how I remember
Yes.
that.
I always thought it was a fake, but anyway, um, uh, but you're right. Merchants. If you see in Bombay itself, there are so many people now accepting QR based payments. Whether it is the vegetable wala, whether the small kirana, whether the pan wala, they all are. They all are accepting. And you're also right in terms of digitization payment. The every calamity throws something good, something bad. The good part is, yes, of course, the that it has increased the digitization. The footprint of QR has gone up, and so we see much more things should happen. So let's look at the Indian government, uh, incentivization or push to this. Recently, the government mandated that businesses with turnover of more than 500 crores must implement a QR-based payment system before March 31. So, Professor Sir, what are the benefits of implementing such systems, and are there any drawbacks?
Uh, it's a good question. Frankly, I have also not yet been able to make a firm opinion of my own on this particular circular. I see it more as a push by the government to enhance the use of QR codes. I believe that the industries which adopt QR code-based payments will actually benefit themselves. And once they start seeing the benefit, they themselves will accelerate its use. As far as drawbacks are concerned, frankly, I really don't see any, except perhaps in the operationalization and implementation.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we continue to discuss with the professor on the use of QR codes. I'm sure since it is a very common use that digital payment made, we all use. I'm sure you have a lot of questions to ask. I'm very sure about it. So you please put your questions in the Q&A box, or if you would like to ask a question directly to professor, you could do that also. Raise your hand and the digital team will enable you to ask a question directly. It's the prerogative of the guest to answer or not. And so we look forward to your questions, and please send it fast before and not just when the session is ending. So let me ask the next thought from Professor. So what are the reasons of low penetration of QR code payments in Western countries, compared, so if you look at particularly the US, do you foresee QR code based payments gaining mainstream popularity for certain businesses in Western countries, including the US?
So I will tell you another interesting facet which will
Yeah.
lead to the answer to your question.
Okay.
You will remember that India has implemented a two-factor authentication for payments. All of us are used to receiving an OTP, and it certainly makes our payments secure.
Yes.
I was quite surprised to find that when I do a transaction with an American company using my credit card, only the CVC code is adequate. There is no two-factor authentication there.
Yes.
Going back in time, when smart cards were actually getting introduced here and started getting used in Europe, United States was still using magnetic stripe-based cards. I thought about it, and then I realized the reason. The reason is that United States had made tremendous investment in availability of POS terminals which could handle those cards at that time. And there was no reason or rhyme for them to immediately make additional investment. So you see, when you are a first mover, you get some advantage of the first mover for some time. But when there are other people who jump, leapfrog and jump somewhere else, just because you have spent enormous amount of money to establish infrastructure for one technology, it actually becomes difficult for that country to go and adopt any other alternate technology.
Yes.
My own belief is that in Europe and US, there is significant infrastructure and tremendous spread of use of credit cards and debit cards particularly in Europe, that they don't seem to require as urgently as we do anything different. And
Yeah.
therefore, they have no incentive. On the other hand, if you look at our country, or if you look at China, if you look at Indonesia, if you look at all these countries here, which missed the first wave of technology adoption in payment systems, and they noticed that not only this technology is now available, but it is much more affordable. So you can see now, therefore, that QR code-based payments will naturally accelerate in those regions of the world where the conventional digital payment systems using credit cards have not been largely established. And that is what is happening in India. This is my opinion.
Yes. So if you permit me, I was in the US for a couple of years.
Yeah.
One of the reason I feel it's not getting adopted is because they use card for payments and they accept even in pens. I remember having to print one letter, one small A4 letter, and it came to some 10 cents. So I said, I don't have. I said I gave her $1. He said, no, use your card. I said, I will pay only 10 cents. He said, yeah, use it. So the adoption is also dependent on how easily you can use your card, perhaps. Whereas the same, if it was in India for 50 paise, I don't think anybody would accept it.
In fact, I'm so happy you brought out this point that even for small value transactions, cards are accepted routinely in other places, in US and whereas that is not so in India. Try to purchase, forget 10 cents. I mean, try to purchase something less than 100 rupees using a card, and the merchant gives you a real dirty look.
Yes. Yeah, I know. So, but I'm sure this will expand. So there was a question from Natation on the same thing. He says that though QR codes were first invented by a Japanese company, Denso Wave, since then its adoption is largely in China and Southeast Asia. When people say China is painted with QR codes, it is true. He says that China is painted with QR codes everywhere, and it is true. Why has the rest of the world not taken to QR codes as much as China and Southeast Asia? I think just a parallel to the question that you already answered.
Yeah. In fact, it's a good question, but you are right. It is parallel to what we just discussed. And frankly, I think there is no reason or rhyme why the adoption of QR code-based payment system should not accelerate exponentially in all those regions, as I mentioned, which do not have a card-based infrastructure. Okay, so it may be just that, you see, adoption of any technology by society, KK, you have seen all those cycles. And those cycles have followed their own wave pattern, Some places they move faster, some places they move slower. My own gut feeling that this pandemic, the result of this pandemic, of a greater appreciation of use of digital payments will actually further accentuate it. And those regions where you find that QR code-based payment systems have not yet caught up to the same scale as China, within next 2 to 3 years, I believe that we will see a difference.
Okay. So we have a very interesting question coming to your way from Professor G. Padmanabhan.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure you know him. Would you agree that from a customer and merchant perspective, he should see only one QR code? Everything else should be at the back end. Or customer should get the option on his mobile phone for choice unless he predetermined all these. I thought even your recent report has not gone this far unless I missed your intent. Any comments on this, sir?
Okay, I was hoping to discuss the report in a different context, but thank you, Professor Padmanabhan, for raising this point. So let me put it this way. Stipulating a single type of thing, I personally believe is not good because it will not foster innovation. It will not foster new ideas to come. However, the basic QR technology is absolutely common and it is safe. And nobody is changing that, although there are various formats and so on. My contention is that even today, if you look at the differences in QR code, the mechanisms of handling the QR code-based payment systems are always at the back end. Some part of that is in the mobile, but large part is at the back end. So what you say is already happening. In this context, I would like to mention that the committee was established primarily to address the interoperability issue. And That is why, in the context of your question, I will say that instead of stipulating one type of QR code, which could have, by the way, meant dismantling of any other type if the committee stipulated one type.
Yeah.
The committee recognized that while there are multiple types of QR codes that exist today, there are two QR codes which have significantly enhanced volumes and some common standardization elements already available. One is the Bharat QR, which,
Yes.
by the way, has been evolved through an international collaborative mechanism. Please remember that Bharat QR has not only the element of RuPay card, but the Visa and MasterCard Europe also. And
Yes.
all of them actually have created a standard. The committee felt that that standard must be recognized, particularly to facilitate cross-border transactions using QR. The second standard, which has emerged very rapidly, is a UPI-based standard, plain and simple standard, which NPCI has defined.
Mhm.
We, the committee, believe that if we adopt these two standards and ensure that anything else that is used or deployed should be interoperable, then we believe that to a large extent, the problems of the kind that your question actually, deeply asked internally, although you have not voiced it, those problems would be solved, is our opinion. Even then, please realize that already in this country, there is a plethora of different types of QR codes already exist. Now, you cannot negate or you cannot stop the transactions happening from those overnights by a fiat. It will be wrong. And that is why we recommended and Reserve Bank has accepted that for all the payment players, a time is given for them to make their QR codes interoperable with either of these two, ensuring therefore that going forward, things will be well, as close to what you desire, and I would also in my mind desire it, but practical and reasonable.
Yes. Okay, I have another question that has come, or similarly on similar to this thing. He says, he or she, I don't know, like a name is not mentioned. You were the chairman of RBI committee. During the course of deliberations, you must have had discussions with payment companies on the common QR code or interoperability. What were their take? I mean, did they accept that?
Yes. In fact, I'm very happy that this question was asked. But if you look at the committee report, in the committee report also we have acknowledged the tremendous contributions made by a large number of payment system operators. By the way, I had defined the modus operandi of this committee right at the beginning that apart from our own thoughts, we must necessarily factor in the thoughts of all those players who actually on the ground are implementing it and have implemented.
Yeah.
We invited all the major payment system players. In fact, the National Council convener himself was a member of our committee. We heard them all. Some of them were keen on sort of taking a particular path. Some others were keen on taking another path. Let me tell you something. I mean, just an example. Suppose I am a payment system operator. I have invested heavily into a particular type of QR code-based application. Would it not be my desire that all my efforts, all the money that I have spent should remain valuable to me? And therefore, what I am doing should be adopted by the whole nation. I mean, in any standardization attempt where technology and different versions of the technology or different implementations of the technology are already in use, this is bound to happen. But let me also tell you that all payment system operators uniformly agreed that there is a tremendous advantage for all of them if we adopt interoperable codes. Only thing is, they wanted to safeguard, they wanted some safeguards such that the investments made by them does not get wiped out overnight. You will notice that the committee has taken cognizance of all these observations made by payment operators and have said that Yes, while the committee recommends that it is absolutely desirable to have interoperable QR codes, the committee has recommended two standards. The Reserve Bank has accepted it, but the committee also recommended and RBI accepted that sufficient time be given for people using other QR code-based systems to adapt to this and make their codes interoperable with either this or. And let me tell you, I mean, I've been a technology professor. Many of you will recognize that the time is more than adequate for all the payment system operators who use any different system today to move gradually towards the adoption of the interoperable code.
Yeah, so just to clarify for our audience, is the committee recommending interoperability or a separate QR code standard that everybody else has to adopt?
No, the committee has recommended and the RBI has accepted that the two interoperable, the two QR code-based payment systems which are recognized as standard for India are Bharat QR and UPI QR. And that any other system has to become interoperable with either of these.
And they can have their own codes also.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But those codes, if they are not, they have to be interoperable with. Interoperability does not mean exact duplication of this.
Correct.
Interoperability only means that the basic elements of the payment system or the basic pieces of information required for payment system are organized in a fashion which are understandable by the other application. Let me give you and all the readers another example. You will notice that today we transact or we transfer money from one account to another account so very easily.
Yeah.
I hope you remember that many years ago, the only mechanism to do so was a check to be written. The check would get deposited, the check would get credited, your account will get debited, and it will take ages for that to happen.
Yeah.
India built a system called structured financial messaging system. In fact, it was the Tata Consultancy Services, your ex-organization, which actually built that with IDRBT. I was a board member in IDRBT then. And there, what we did is, we said that banks may use their individual formats for giving information about the pay, amount paid, account number, etc., etc. But let there be a common standard which will make these systems interoperable. So we don't care how SBI or Bank of Baroda or any other bank handles the internal messaging for their own use. But whenever they are going to transfer money from one of their accounts to somebody else's account, or whenever they have to receive money from somebody else's account to their account from some other bank, then they must exchange information in this standard messaging format. That is how the NEFT and RTGS work. That is how the UPI based IMPS has developed. This standardization of common messaging formats is the key to interoperability. Rest of it can be individualized, unique to themselves. There is absolutely no problem.
Yes, absolutely. So to make it very, absolutely understandable to the common denominator, is it possible for me to transfer my money from one digital wallet to another digital wallet?
That's an interesting question. Well, technically it is possible, but if you ask me, I am not in favor of use of digital wallets individually at all. That is because I have always constantly promoted the transfer of funds from one's account to another account.
Yes. Okay.
And since practically all the bankable Indians now either have a bank account or about to have a bank account, whether it is Jandan or whatever, we have made tremendous progress in providing bank accounts to every family. There is a significant advantage of doing transfer from a bank account to bank account. That is because there is a traceability. The chances of fraud are less because the security is always very tight within the banking system. And therefore, there is a significant advantage if you do that. And that is the reason why, although wallets came out, digital wallets came out, because all these things were not there, if you recall, KK. At the
Correct.
beginning, these things were not there. But technically, I'm sorry for digressing, but technically the answer to your question is yes, it is possible to do so.
Okay. Look forward to that. So just a last thing on that report. By when is this interoperability going to come through, or any timeline set up?
Yes, RBI has set up, I think, March 22, if I'm not mistaken. Just give me a second. I can find that out.
Okay. While Professor looks at that, just if it's difficult, it's okay, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, continue to send your questions.
The use of a PC for this platform permits me to have you and the other audience in one window and the RBI notification in another window. So I have access to that, and it says that where is the date? Yeah. Payment system operators that use proprietary QR codes shall shift to one or more interoperable QR codes. The process of migration shall be completed by March 31st, 2022.
Okay.
So it is 1 year and 3 months even from today.
Yes.
But considering that this notification was released in October 2020, clearly everybody had 1.5 years to migrate. And as a stalwart in implementing digital systems, you would agree that in 1.5 years, why you yourself would have implemented a much larger system than this. So I think the RBI has been very reasonable, and the notification adopts this.
Sure, sir. So before we take the next question, let's also move to QR as not only for payments, but for something else. Okay, what else can we look at? So it is said that merchants can use QR codes to drive consumer loyalty and spending. What are the other use cases which will further boost the popularity of QR code-based payments?
Okay, this is a very good question, and I think an important question. Thanks for asking this. So please recall that the original invention of QR code was not at all done for payment system related applications. I mean, the work that Masahiro Hara did in the Denso wave in 1994 was primarily to replace the limitation of the barcode by something which could contain more information, and the intention was primarily to use in identification of parts, etc. So if you recall that QR code is essentially an evolution of barcode with significantly larger amount of information that can be contained, there is absolutely no limit to its possible usage, because it is actually the QR code per se is not about payment. The QR code is about codifying significantly large amount of information in a very small space, which can be decoded using some piece of software. At this stage, let me also mention that one of the reasons why QR code and its usage became so popular is because the important thing that Masahiro Hara did, he opened up the entire QR code technology to the world. I mean, it's an example of open sourcing the standards. And that is the reason why large number of innovators all across the world started coming up with various things. Today, you can go to the web and find a free application which can generate QR code for any information that you type in. I was just telling my granddaughter how QR code is, and she said, "Can it record my address?" So I asked her to type her address in Pune in that text box, and a QR code got generated. Then I asked her to take her camera and scan that QR code, and presto, on her camera, the text of her address came up. Now
Yes.
this is the simplest of the examples, but it is not, the usage is not limited to just address information. It could be a variety of pieces of information. It could be useful information. Part of it may be related to payment system, but the opportunities to use QR code for multiplicity of applications is tremendous. It is just that the payment system operators have been the first set of smart lot of people who have started using this both for the benefit of their customers and of course for their own benefit. I believe that there is no end to the innovative applications that one can think of, and there is a tremendous potential to use QR codes for a variety of other applications.
Sure. So that actually brings to another observation from a gentleman by the name of Vishwanathan. He says, PB Siddhartha College of Arts and Science, a college in Andhra Pradesh, is attaching QR codes on trees in the campus to educate their students about botanical names and medicinal value.
Wonderful.
Okay, so obviously there is much
What,
more
what,
to
what,
QR
is,
payments.
what is the name you said? Siddharth College.
Yeah, PB Siddhartha College of Arts and Science.
Wow.
It's in Andhra Pradesh.
Arts and Science. Which place in Andhra Pradesh?
Since is not mentioned.
I see. But I mean,
Yeah.
I must compliment and congratulate the people. I would have ordinarily expected such innovative usage in an engineering college. Here is an arts and science college, but because they are a science college, perhaps they are more sensitive to the issues such as botanical understanding by the students, which is good. And this is amazing because if you remember, or if you see, even in museums or wherever, to give detailed information about any artifact, large
Yes.
amount of text has to be written,
Yes.
and you read it on a large board, etc., etc. Now it is amazing that a simple QR code, you paste it on the tree, and people can just put their camera, click it, and actually can get a huge amount of information about this. Amazing. I would like to compliment them for this usage.
Yeah.
And such is the innovative use that is possible. In fact, he is actually
Absolutely.
exemplifying what I just suggested as possibility. Wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vishwanathan, for this excellent observation and on that. So let's take one more question from the audience, if there is any. Okay, we'll come to that. So often, often QR code based payments are micro payments, and mostly popular among the users who are the bottom of pyramid, who have security concerns about this payment method. What are the measures being taken to ensure foolproof security in QR code based payment transactions?
Good question, because you see, we may talk about small value transactions and therefore imply that the security needs are perhaps less than those which are required for larger value transactions. I beg to differ significantly. The small value transactions are definitely done by people who also do high value transactions. But to a large extent, the small value transactions are done by people whose economic level and spending capacity itself is very small. For you and me, 25 rupees may not be a very large value, but someone who is actually earning money on daily wages, 25 rupees is a large percentage of money that he or she earns in a day. And
Yes.
therefore, that person is as concerned about the security of the payment of 25 rupees that you and I would be concerned about payment of 2,500 rupees. So therefore, I do not agree that the security mechanism should be any less just because the payment systems are handling smaller value. What one may do is one may simplify the procedures for small value transactions for the convenience of those who conduct those transactions. Now I come back to your main question. To the best of my knowledge, the security mechanisms implemented in QR code-based payment systems are almost as rigorous as I see them in the other transactions. Please note that the QR code itself has no security. It is just a printout of an image.
Yes.
The security, therefore, has to be within the set of apps which actually transact the actual amount or the actually carry out the transaction. Now, thanks to the Reserve Bank regulations, the banking regulations, and the self-imposed regulations by all the payment players, everybody has taken precaution to implement the desired security at every stage of this chain of transaction process. I would therefore believe that the QR code-based payments are as secure or as less secure, if one wants to look at it negatively, as any
Yes.
other larger payment system, that digital payment system that exists in the country. This is my conviction.
Yeah. So, there could be issues there because I was investigating a cybercrime.
Yeah.
There, the QR code was sent to make the payment, but instead of getting the payment, his account was debited.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then he said, "Okay, I'm going to refund the money, so I'm giving you another QR. So one more payment." So
So,
unless you're alert.
So let me put it this way. I personally think that it is wrong to wrong to blame the QR code based payments. The correct blame I should take because I was hoodwinked into believing this. Is it any dissimilar from a huge set of fraud mails that you get saying that my aunt is ill and please send me some $1,000 or something, and some fellow genuinely believing in that sent $1,000. Now the mistake is mine. I should be alert, and in fact that brings me to another point. I'm so thankful that you raised this issue. I forgot to mention it in the context of security. You see, security is only as good or as bad as is the awareness and the practices followed by people who use that system. And in India, the awareness about general security itself is very lax. About digital security is still very lax. I believe an important initiative which not just the payment players, but and banks and Reserve Bank and everybody must do is educate the population, advise the population, not once, but constantly about the best practices and the safe practices that they must. If they don't use the safe practice, then technology, howsoever beautifully implemented for security, may actually get fooled because you are actually making a decision to make that payment. And
Yes.
once you make that decision, then that decision by law has to be implemented by the rest of the payments. So I think the awareness among the users, a better appreciation of the right practices is an absolute must. And I
Yes.
think what I'm saying applies not only to QR code-based payment system, but any digital payment system.
Absolutely. I take this opportunity to tell my audience that whenever you make a QR-based payment, it tells you where you're making the payment.
Yeah.
Read that carefully.
Read that.
You must read that carefully and then submit.
Absolutely.
Do not submit it before reading it.
Absolutely.
So that's, I thought I could use this opportunity to tell our audience. So do you foresee any evolution in the implementation of deployment of QR code-based payments, payment option? Is there anything else that can come?
Very, very difficult. I mean, I used to enjoy crystal gazing and predicting things, but I should realize that the technology is leaving me far behind very quickly. And the ability of human innovation is so tremendous. And in recent decades, it has found wings. So actually, when we call this century as a digital century, this is going to be a century of all kinds of innovations, many of which we cannot even imagine. So I would beg your pardon. I would only say that I do expect a large number of innovations to happen, but I do not know which innovation will come from which quarter and in what sphere.
Okay, that's true. Absolutely. We talked about interoperability. Interoperability is a crucial requirement for the ubiquity of QR code, typically merchant payments, for delivering a seamless customer experience. While the government has issued directives towards achieving interoperability between domestic QR code-based payment, is there a need to achieve interoperability between cross-border QR code-based payments?
Very good question. And let me tell you that this was essentially an important question that was at the back of mind of all the committee members.
Okay.
It is, in fact, one of the reasons why you will notice that we recommended and RBI has accepted that and circulated. It has listed two interoperable QR codes as of today.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned some time ago, one of them is essentially a UPI-based QR code.
Yeah.
And there is no doubt in my mind that that is the one which has been rapidly expanding in usage in India. And therefore, I believe that the domestic users will continue to flock around the use of that standard. The other standard which I mentioned and which RBI has specifically listed is the Bharat QR. And as I said, the Bharat QR code is not an Indian stipulation alone. It is in fact a international standard which has been achieved by the collaboration and cooperation between MasterCard, Visa, our NPCI-based payment, and so on.
Rupee.
I believe that the cross-border transactions are likely to veer around this standard. I will also mention the reasons for suggesting that both should continue to operate. You see, any international standard which is cross-border takes time to evolve. A new version is not easy to define, cannot be defined very quickly because agreements have to be obtained amongst multiple international players on any modification in the standard.
Yes.
On the other hand, a domestic usage QR code can adapt relatively faster and therefore incorporate meaningful changes in technology which can become further facilitators of the use of the QR codes. But both are essential, you are absolutely right. And I believe that RBI notification makes adequate provision for this. Further, the committee has nowhere said that these two are the only ones which will exist till eternity and nothing else. I mean, we are all aware that new things will come up. So in the RBI notification itself, you will notice that there is an implicit place kept for a possible emergence of another interoperable standard, which may happen in future. We don't know if and when it will.
True. An interesting question has come, and I thought, he says, why should I continue to write checks to the bank? Why can't I use QR codes?
Very, very good question. Let me once again go back in time when I was attending a payment conference in United States. This was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
There was an interesting paper in a session with the following title: "The check is dead, long live the check." Please note that in the United States, the proliferation of digital payment was happening very rapidly, and many people expected the checks to die. He presented statistics to show that in spite of the increase in the digital payments, the checks have been growing at 4% annually. And that is why he said, check is dead, but long live the check. I would take the same analogy and say that in India, the desire of people like me is to make the check dead. People should do digital transactions. But the fact of life is that establishment of a large infrastructure and the conviction of a large number of people because of practice of using checks. As long as this exists, people will continue to use it. It's exactly the same reason why the United States is not able to get rid of magnetic stripe credit card.
Mm.
That there is a large number of people and a large infrastructure to use the checks. As long as it exists, people are going to be tempted to use that rather than doing a digital transaction. But let me tell you, absolutely any transaction that you do by check today, particularly one involving payment from one account to another account of another bank, which is what 95% of the checks do. Only 5% of the checks are actually in cash.
Yeah.
Then all such 95% transactions, each one of them can today be done by the digital payment system, which have been well established in our country. There is absolutely nothing to prevent. That's all.
Great, sir. So we have reached the 5 o'clock, but just a couple of more minutes, if you don't mind, sir. Okay. So what are the barriers that retard the implementation of QR code payments, if any?
Frankly, I don't see any barriers. It is just the need for either a larger number of players who will actually bring such solutions, or expansion of the business by the existing players will bring such solutions. There is one point which was mentioned by the payment system operators, and that was the need for an elaborate KYC mechanism which is needed to onboard a merchant.
Yeah.
For the benefit of people, let me put it this way. Onboarding means that a payment system operator can actually make a merchant a member, formally a member of a payment system, so that he can start using it. Now, for that, the KYC norms have to be implemented. That is one of the reasons. We debated this. In fact, one suggestion was that since that merchant would have a bank account, and his bank account would have been KYC certified anyway, as is mandated by the banking system, why do we require this separate? So we debated this, and we said that this is a matter to be decided between the individual banks and the payment system operators. And if some kind of an affidavit can be taken, which will absolve the banks of responsibility for any fraud if the KYC is not done, then this could be achieved. I don't see any other impediment except possibly this, and even this is not preventing anything from happening. It is only delaying the process. But other than that, I mean, instead of I getting incorporated in Monday, I have to wait for 3 days to ensure that my KYC is confirmed. Of course, the payment system operators, they would like everything to be done in 5 minutes and not 25 minutes. So that is okay.
Okay. So G. Padmanabhan says the suggestion professor is making has been implemented. Onboarding is now less cumbersome. So immediately a prompt has come for you, sir.
Great. In fact, I was hoping, because in the dialogue with the payment system operators, and we also had Mr. Sunil Mehta, the chairman of Indian Banks Association, who was very reasonable and yet who was very firm on ensuring that banks should not get unwanted, unnecessary, and unasked for liabilities in the process. I believe that the dialogue between either IBA or the individual banks and the payment system operators has resolved this issue and simplified the onboarding process to a significant extent. And I would like to compliment our viewer for saying that this is indeed happening. This is good news to all of us.
Yes, absolutely. Great, sir. So my final question to you, sir, since we are past the 5 o'clock. 5 years from now, you're seeing in the crystal ball. 5 years from now, how you foresee the future of QR code-based payment across the world, and a note also on India.
India, in my opinion, will significantly enhance its QR code-based payment system for retail payments. And in 5 years, we should definitely reach at least the current Chinese percentage of QR code usage, which is very high.
Okay.
I
Okay.
believe that the other countries, particularly in the Western nations, will also start adopting QR code, not only for payment systems, but for other applications for which innovative applications will emerge in coming years. I believe they will also start using it. But this is one area I tell you where the Asian countries will clearly dominate the rest of the world.
Yeah. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude this session. And please join me in thanking Professor for coming and spending time with us. Very, very interesting. I really enjoyed discussing this with you, sir. I think after a long time, I'm again discussing with you. So it has always been a pleasure to talk to you and understand your thoughts. So once again, thank you very much. And I think we all look forward to the implementation of the report that you submitted along with the other committee members to Reserve Bank of India, particularly on the interoperability, which you said is around March 2022. And that's the need of the hour, because without interoperability, we are like confined to certain pockets,
Absolutely.
and that can get bridged. So look forward to doing that. And thank you again. Thank you for coming, spending time with us. And we would love to have you once again after some time and on another kind of topic. With these, thank you very much and a good evening to you, sir.
Thank you very much, KK. I really enjoyed, and I really compliment you for asking very important and useful questions. I hope this has helped the audience to clarify some of the doubts that they might have in their minds.
Sure, sir. It is a joint effort of EPS people, me, Vivek, Tapash. There are many others who make this happen and the entire event happen. So we are the one. This is the 135th session that we are doing in the pandemic. So it is not a one-man show. It is a complete team of EPS. So the compliment goes to them. Thank you very much again, sir, and for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all a very good evening. Thank you for being with us, and look forward to seeing you in the next session. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.